afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. The next few weeks are pretty busy when it comes to gardens and landscapes. There's a lot to do, including planting, pruning, and preparing flower and garden beds. So we've invited two experts to give us their tips on these and other topics. Joining me are Leonard Perry and Hazelrigg of UVM Extension in the Plant and Soil Science Department. Good to see you both again.
Good to be back.
Now, Leonard, you've got some flowers to start with.
Of course, I always love to start with flowers, especially this time of year, the spring bulbs. Well, it's funny because these are all in bloom now. People know the daffodils and tulips, but I brought some little different ones. And even though these bloom in spring, you plant them in fall.
Okay.
But because they're in bloom now, all the seed catalog, or bulb companies send out those catalogs now. So now's a good time to actually order for fall shipment and then planting. So that's why I thought to look at a few different ones. You know, most people know the tulips, which deer and rabbits love. So if you have those, I've lost some this year and had to put out some repellents already. But the daffodils, I've really gotten into those because nothing really eats those. They're pretty well toxic to it. And this one is a dwarf version called Jet Fire. It has kind of an orangey center to it, and then the little petals. This is about the height of it too, about 6 to 8 inches high. So it's great. I just get a whole mess of them, and they build up, and then you can divide them and make more and plant them all along a walk or border or little designs through the garden. So these are great, and they're fairly early too as far as the daffodils. But these are some what are called minor bulbs. They come out, you know, late April, usually after the crocus and the snowdrops. If snowdrops are usually first, and the crocus. But these are kind of different, and I've got 3 types in here. This one in the center with the flared out petals, that's Glory of the Snow. These are all great for naturalizing. You can buy them 50, 100 at a time, just plant them out and let them take over and grow. And these again, this is about the height of those. Then over here, this dark blue one is called Squill, Siberian Squill. Again, just great, a whole mass of these all in blue. And then this is a variation. It's actually a bit different. It's Striped Squill, it's called, but it's actually Pushkinia, named after a Russian botanist, Pushkin. But anyway, these are all great minor bulbs that people really should consider. You can plant them under others, under shrubs. They kind of spread out to my lawn, so I can't mow as quick in those areas because I just love seeing those.
Yeah, this is beautiful. And you're a plant pathologist, which means you get to see the not so pretty stuff.
Right, I get to see the problem things. And one thing I was going to mention today is the cold. I mean, it's been a crazy April so far. Because late March we had pretty warm temperatures, 60s, and then so that pushes the buds to come out. Then in April, I think April 5th, we had like 10 degrees in some places.
Right.
So there's been a lot of damage, and I brought some pictures of what damage looks like in fruit buds.
Okay.
I heard that there may not be much of a peach crop down in southern New England just because of this cold damage. This is in blueberry, and if you want to check your fruit plants for damage, you just look for this browning in the center of the bud. And I think in northern Vermont we should probably be fine because our buds weren't that far along, but maybe southern Vermont, they may have had more of a problem.
Right.
So raspberries, we're also seeing some damage in those, and if gardeners see tip dieback in raspberries, just cut that out.
No,
these are peach buds. Damaged by cold injury. Yeah, normally that should be green and healthy. And then the last one I've got is an apple flower bud.
Yep.
And we should be fine. We're not, you know, these were all still pretty tight in northern Vermont, but it might be southern Vermont that there might be more of an issue with some of this cold damage.
Okay. Now this is the time of year that people are also starting seeds, getting ready to plant outside. Any tips, Leonard?
Oh yeah, definitely some tips on that. It's probably a little bit late to start a lot of those flowers. You'll be wanting to buy those. Some of the things like marigolds, zinnias that come up quick, you can get. And of course the vegetables, there are a lot that you sow directly in the garden. Take a look at some of those, such as here, the beets, peas, carrots, potatoes, lettuce, and radishes. You can kind of sow directly, but a lot of these, to get a start on the season, I like to start, not necessarily these, but most other vegetables indoors and then plant the actual plants out.
Mm-hmm. Is it too soon to start thinking about planting outside?
You can start planting some outside. Some of those, and one of the things I did want to show was the potatoes, because we mentioned seed, and I've been in stores and the clerk said, oh yeah, let me show you this seed rack, and said, no, this is not, potatoes are grown from, these are what are called seed potatoes. So, and this is, they're not really seeds, they're just basically potatoes, and they have these little bits starting here. These are the eyes, and that's what's going to make the new plant next year. Now these are just starting, so if they're just coming out like this, you want to do what's called pre-sprouting or green sprouting. A couple of terms I like, pipping and chitting. So British, you know, to chit your potatoes. So this is being chitted. So when you see the, you know, this is really growing more. You want these about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch before you plant out. It really helps get a jump start on the growth, less disease chance. And what you'll want is a piece that has 2 to 3 of these eyes on it. So if you cut it, you know, want to cut it if it's a bigger piece and there's some eyes here, you can plant both those. Just let it heal for a couple of days before in the warm place before you put it out. But to chit your potatoes, you basically, it's very simple. Just put them in a warm, dark place for a couple of weeks and then put them out in a little bit more light, not direct sunlight, for 2 to 4 weeks in warm, and let those grow a little bit and green up.
And so you said they should be like this size?
Yeah,
before
about
you plant
1/4
them?
to 1/2 an inch. It's a little bit bigger. So I've got another week in the dark and then a couple, 3 weeks out in the light before I plant those out. But this is a time of the year, you know, when the daffodils are out. That's, if these are ready to plant out, you can put those out.
Now, new gardeners in particular may be unsure when to plant. What outside? What advice do you have?
That's always a question I get. And so there are some things you can plant out early, hardy crops that tolerate, you know, kind of a decent frost there, in 25, 28 broccoli, radishes, cabbage, turnip, and peas. But there's some that even tolerate a bit colder, collards, kale, and spinach, especially once they're established. So think about those for real early. Now, ones that tolerate a light frost, you plant again around the time of the daffodils coming out, early May, say late April. Beets, carrots, cauliflower, Irish potatoes, lettuce, and greens. Again, some of these from seed, others you can get plants. And then you want to wait on these, the beans, the corn, tomatoes, squash. These are warm season crops. They really like the warmth. If you can put them out, use frost protection, but they're really not going to grow much. And I've tried it before, and once I planted out in June, grew just as well and produced about the same time, just because they hit the ground running, and these were just sitting there waiting for the warmth.
And so it really makes a big difference. I mean, people might be anxious to get out there and get a few warm days, and you think, okay, well, I have nothing to worry about, and then we get zapped by another frost.
Exactly. So then you want to think about frost protection, but for those especially warm season crops, you can buy them, just hold them, you know, in pots, maybe put them in a little bit bigger pot, grow them onto a little bit bigger size, so when you do put them out, they'll really take off. Okay.
Now, Ann, what else do you have to tell us about?
Well, Leonard was talking about seedlings and starting your own seedlings. This was a sample that I got from a grower in the plant diagnostic clinic, and it's a group of onions that are have a disease called damping off.
I was going to say, what happened to them?
Yeah, so damping off is a soil-borne disease that is caused by 4 or 5 different soil-borne fungi. And the fungi like really cool, wet conditions. So if you're starting seeds, you want to make sure you favor the plant, not those fungi. So you want to start with a sterile mix. Don't go out and dig up garden soil and try to start your seedlings in that. Start with a sterile mix and keep the things warm and on the dry side. And I brought a couple of pictures of what damping off looks like.
Okay.
And if you do have this, you know, it's better just to toss it and start over. You can't really rescue it. So that's what you'd see in a flat. You'd see some holes and plants falling over, and those fungi have attacked those plants, probably because it was just cold and wet soil.
Does that mean that all the plants should be tossed, or?
Well, you could try to, you know, get rid of the middle cells, but and transplant the others into new soil, I guess. But sometimes it's better just to throw them out. And then the next, so this is what you're looking for. If you've got lots of nice, healthy roots, then that's fine. But if you've got this damping off problem, this is what the roots will look like. So, yeah, so the plant's not going to survive.
So now, can this happen outside as well? I mean, we hear a lot about, you know, diseases that come in on the air and weather systems.
These fungi are in all soils. So if we have really cold, wet conditions with seedlings seeds germinating, we definitely can have damping off in fields and gardens.
So let's talk about tools that, oh, you also have another plant that you want to show too. This is one that we can all relate to.
I got this from, this is a dandelion. I got this from Leonard's lawn.
I've got plenty.
No, not really. This is from my lawn. But just a reminder, these are definitely coming up. There's a little tight bud in here ready to flower. And you can dig these up at this time of the year and get rid of them. But the most important thing is look at that long taproot on that plant. You've got to really dig deep and be very careful because you have to get all this taproot. You don't want it to, because if it breaks, that can
Well, that would explain a lot in my garden because I use one of those dandelion things that just like snips it right about here.
Yeah, no, you want to get all the way down.
So you have to really dig it.
Yeah, you do. You do. And shake the soil off and get rid of it.
And so, Leonard, I think you have
there's all kinds of tools. There's actually a dandelion digger that's kind of long and it really goes down. But some of the tools, I thought I'd bring a couple of different ones here. This has become very popular. It's called a hori-hori, and it just sounds very menacing. Looks very menacing, you know. But it's really not as bad as it looks. But this is great for many things, and it's got a nice handle on it, easy to hold. It's kind of padded. It's ergonomic. It's got kind of an indentation to it, so it's good for shoveling with, and it's good for sowing seeds. You can use the side for making a trench.
This is like the numbers on it
and
too.
It's got the numbers, so you know the distance. Like if you want to sow every inch apart or 2 inches, or planting something, you can use it for digging because it's kind of like a trowel. One of the things I like about it, you see, there's a serrated edge on it here, and this is very nice because for dividing perennials. I used to use an old saw, but now I use one of these. You dig up the perennial and you can just saw it in half with this, and dig it up and saw it. And so again, this is just a great tool. The hori-hori means dig translated. There's different versions of it. This one, and getting one with a case is nice. Also has some serrations. It's a little bit shorter. It has protection here, so when you're digging, you can actually push and get down more. Not quite as long handle or long unit, doesn't have the numbers or much. It's more for the digging and then the cutting with, but that's another, and weeding, of course, like the dandelions. This could really get down. If you're a weed, this would look very menacing. And then if you're planting, this is not the hori-hori, but it's a variation. It's just kind of a cross, with a trowel. This also has the numbers on it. It's more of a scoop, so you can use it for scooping soil, making that trench, putting the seeds here, and then tapping it to sow them, digging small holes for transplants you're putting out. So this is a planting, kind of a long planting spade, and I really like this, and especially in the spring when you're planting out versus just the shorter trowel usually.
Now, I've been dividing some perennials. I had hosta, that was a monster. And then also daylilies. Now, if you don't get all the roots like a dandelion, will they come back?
Some of those, if it's not quite like the dandelion, even pieces of that and some of your weeds will just, but usually you need some growing points on those. So if you just leave some roots, they're probably not going to come back unless there are a couple of growing points near the crown, near the surface. That if you get all the plant and just leave some roots, then they probably will just rot.
Okay, and then conversely, if I want to divide them, you mentioned just cutting them in half. It's okay to cut the roots up and they'll be okay? Yeah,
usually what I do is, if it's a clump and I want to take half off, I'll just use a square tip spade and just go down in half. If it's really heavy, like a Siberian iris, I may have to use a hatchet and a mallet and beat on it to get it started because it is just solid. But now I have one of these hori-horis, I can just saw away at it. But if it's a big plant, and you can just leave that, or if you dig it up, again, it really can be pretty tough. I've even seen growers use those electric sawzalls, like you go down through walls and construction with, and they've used those on perennials. So, and then they'll just, sprout right back, so it really doesn't hurt them.
Now, we covered a lot of ground, and Leonard, I know that there are more tips and information on your website, as well as some gardening tours that are coming up.
I've got a lot more on my website, plus a garden tour one to mention. We've got 3 different ones, but this one coming right out May 23rd. The deadline's actually May 9th, so just a few days left to register for that. We do have some seats, and we're going over to Connecticut River Valley, Dummerston, Vermont, Walker Farm, then go up to Cider Hill Gardens and end up in Norwich. There, both King Arthur and a greenhouse. The guests have been growing for many years there, and it's just a great chance to spend the day out, learn a lot about horticulture, buy plants. We'll have plenty of room on the bus. And so you can go to my website to find out more about this and other tours, perrysperennials.info, and you can go under the events, and I've got links there.
Excellent. Well, it's time to get out in the garden. Thanks to both of you. That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.